My name is Nick Neal, Technical Manager for Hutchinson's, and we're here today at the Claydon Virtual Open Day for 2020. It's early May, and as you can see I'm in another soil pit. We did a soil pit last year, Jeff's mentioned that, and that was in oilseed rape. This year we've got it in winter wheat. So there'll be a slightly different root structure to have a look at, but what we wanted to check out was the overall resilience of the soil from crop to crop and through the rotation. How does it hold up under the different crops? Obviously Jeff is establishing his crops in a very similar way each year, using very shallow surface tillage and raking to manage his residue, and then strip tilling with his drill. I've put some blue dye in so that we can see how well the water is infiltrating into the soil. I did this last year, but last year we used quite a big basket to do that over a wide area. What I wanted to demonstrate this year was using a much smaller 4-inch infiltration tube, how that water actually behaves going down through the soil profile when it's infiltrated in a very narrow column. Does several things. One, it tests the infiltration at the surface, and I think that's a key issue from 2019 going into 2020, is much of the problems we've seen across arable acres is the lack of infiltration through the surface of soil. Rather than poor drainage, it's been poor surface structure where the soil's been overworked. That then runs together, and we can show you that later in a slake test. That then runs together through being pounded by heavy rainfall, stops water penetrating or infiltrating through the surface, accumulates in the area we're sowing our seed, and then we get really poor establishment. And that's certainly not the case here. You can see that we've got good water infiltration into the soil through that test. It's going right to depth in the soil, 1.5 meters down in this hole. We've got water infiltrating all the way down through that soil. And what I wanted to demonstrate, and hopefully you can see, is that when you put a column of water into the soil, it doesn't spread out. If it does spread out, that's indicating that the infiltration through the upper layers of the soil is really poor. What we're looking for that water to do is pass down through that soil, passage down in a fairly narrow column. That is what it does naturally. So the water is penetrating to depth with no hang-ups down through the soil, all the way to full 1.5 meters deep here, and I'm sure it goes deeper than that, but I'm not going any deeper today. There's no need for that. You can see that it's passaging down through the soil through natural cracks and fissures, but it's also using wormholes from our deep anisic worms, which are working right down through this soil. And one of the things I've seen constantly in cleaning this face out is the number of deep working large anisic worms. So what we're looking for is these deep anisic or deep working anisic worms. These grow really big. This is an adult worm, you can tell that because it's got a collar on, so that's of breeding age. And the soils here are absolutely full of these characters. We saw that last year. I'm seeing it again today. Every time I dig into this face, I'm uncovering 2 or 3 of these guys actively moving up and down through their burrows. They're doing that at the moment because we've had about 30 mils of rain recently. The soil is moist through the profile now, and these are quite free to move up and down through their burrows, and that's exactly what they're doing. So I'm finding loads of these today. They're a really good indicator of soil health. They're a really good indicator of soil structure. They are a key part of structuring our soil, certainly to depth. We're also looking for the smaller endogeeic worms that work in the upper zone of the soil. We know we've got those because of the structure, the honeycomb structure of the soil that we're seeing building here constantly. Every time I look at this, it's getting better and better and better. We can also see the amount of organic matter in this soil, holding it together. It's a lovely dark colour. It's absolutely full of roots, very resilient to weather, and that's indicated by what we've been through in 2019 and 2020. This was drilled in October. and you can see that the level of establishment in this field is absolutely superb, because there's never any hang up of water in the seeding layer just here. So it's not about the drill that you use, it's about how you use the drill that you've got in preparing your soil to get the very best from the machinery that you're using. So a really good indicator is the wormholes, the organic matter. You can see the roots running all the way to depth, and they're right down coming out of the face here. Jeff and I were just looking at the spoil that was dug out of this hole, and particularly the subsoil element of the soil, and it's absolutely full of root material. That's key going forward, because that gives this whole structure, or this whole face of soil, depth of soil, proper structure, natural structure. So the only bit that Jeff's ever working with is this small area at the top here. All of this area here, other than a mole plough occasionally, but not through this particular chalk. Yeah, without moving this soil to depth, we're maintaining that natural structure. And that's giving us good passage of water, good resilience, whether it's a dry year or a wet year. So we've got lovely moisture down here at the moment, even though that 30 mils came after a quite considerable dry period. We've got good moisture levels all down through the soil. And one of the key features is that when we do get rainfall, it passages all the way through the soil structure. It doesn't get hung up in one area. These deep working roots, which are gaining access to the soil at depth through wormholes, and we've got a root over here. You can see that root there passaging down through that wormhole. You can see how deep that's getting, you know, quite a root structure down through there. That's going to depth, and that is now drawing the reservoir of moisture from down here, bringing it up to the feeding roots at the surface. So that they're constantly getting the NPK and micronutrients that they require. Another issue that we get when we manage soil in this way is a reduction in weeds. So again, Jeff is changing the way he's tackling his weed problem. He's spreading out his herbicide applications so that he's not impacting the establishment of his crop by overloading it with herbicide at any one time. He's spreading them out through the autumn period. The way he's managing his soil is giving him the access he requires to his field, because really good structural integrity carries the weight of machinery really well. That carries through to harvest, so that when he's running combines and trailers on the fields, he's not damaging that structure and having to rectify that problem. The soil is resilient to trafficking. So it allows you to manage your crop better. You don't have to pile on herbicide because you've only got one chance to spray it. You can do it in several smaller doses, which has less impact on your crop. Less impact on your crop means you get better crop competition with the weeds. And one of the other advantages of using these wider rows for drilling and the strip tillage is that you can then run a hoe through these rows to take out blackgrass and any other weeds are popping up in the spring period. So there's a whole number of reasons why moving to this kind of cultivation process is really beneficial to your soil, beneficial to your business.